A single, unbroken thread of steel tearing across 7 time zones. We're talking about a journey that literally devours an entire week of continuous travel. It's a massive, unyielding scar carved from the heart of Europe all the way to the edge of Asia. 9,289 kilometers. That's not just a number, it's a blunt, almost incomprehensible fact. That is the exact distance spanning from the Golden Domes of Moscow straight to the shores of the Pacific Ocean. The Russian Empire was facing a terrifying dilemma. To the east lay vast, untold wealth trapped beneath the Siberian permafrost: gold, diamonds, coal, and timber. But separating Moscow from that absolute treasure trove was a deadly frozen isolation. Crossing this terrain didn't take days, it took months. Winters plummeted to minus 50 degrees Celsius. And because of this impenetrable icy barrier, Russia's entire Pacific coastline was sitting there completely undefended.
How does an empire even survive when it can't defend its own borders? It was an absolute strategic nightmare. Military garrisons out east were cut off from their supply lines for months at a time. If a foreign power decided to invade right then, Moscow would be paralyzed, geographically unable to respond. They desperately needed a lifeline, and fast. The starting gun for the most grueling engineering project in human history was fired with just a single note, scrawled on a government report in 1886. Tsar Alexander III's mandate was absolute. He wrote, "I must own with grief and shame that until now the government has done scarcely anything. It is time, high time." That wasn't just a command, it was a completely impossible directive.
And to achieve the impossible, you have to pay the price: 350 million rubles. To put that in perspective, you're looking at about $12 billion today, funneled directly into the frozen mud. And despite fierce, screaming objections that this money should be spent on schools and hospitals, the empire plowed blindly forward. The reality on the ground was absolutely merciless. Tens of thousands of soldiers, convicts, and desperate peasants were hurled into the Siberian void. Their only task? To blast through solid, unyielding permafrost with raw dynamite, just to lay a single piece of track. The seasons themselves were a descent into hell. In the summer, workers waded through impassable mud, choked by clouds of mosquitoes so thick they could literally suffocate the horses. In the winter, they were battered by minus 40-degree blizzards. And tearing through these labor camps were silent, invisible killers: cholera, typhoid, and anthrax. The human toll was completely horrific. Tens of thousands dead, and there isn't even an official record. Men succumbed to disease, accidents, exposure, and sheer starvation, their bodies swallowed forever by the exact same taiga they were trying to conquer. But no obstacle was more nightmarish than Lake Baikal, the deepest lake on Earth. Bypassing it initially seemed completely impossible, so the engineers resorted to a kind of fever dream logic. First, they disassembled massive icebreaker ships over in England. Second, they shipped thousands of those pieces thousands of miles across to Siberia to be rebuilt. And finally, in the dead of winter, they simply laid temporary tracks directly onto the frozen ice of the lake itself. It was a terrifying gamble. And the ice didn't always hold. A locomotive, a multi-ton machine of iron and fire, broke right through the freezing surface, plunging instantly into the pitch-black depths of the lake. The lake absolutely refused to be crossed by ice, so they had to choose the agonizing alternative: 33. That's the number of tunnels engineers were forced to blast through solid rock along Baikal's steep, unforgiving cliffs. It took 6 deadly, back-breaking years just to conquer that single 260-kilometer stretch. This railway was pushed to the absolute brink. Begun in 1891, it was violently forced into a massive military test in 1904 before it was anywhere near ready. And though it was finally completed in 1916, its ultimate trial by fire wouldn't actually come until 1941. But back in 1904, right in the middle of the Russo-Japanese War, the incomplete line was a disaster. 20. That was the maximum speed. Because the track was single lane and totally unfinished, desperate military trains crept along at just 20 kilometers per hour. It created a colossal bottleneck that completely strangled Russia's supply lines to the front.
The result was a humiliating defeat that shook the Romanov dynasty to its very core. It was a catastrophic logistical failure, marking the first time in modern history an Asian power had defeated a European one. That intense humiliation forced a frantic, desperate acceleration to finally finish and double-track the line.
And that frantic acceleration is what saved the nation. Today, the railway carries 30% of Russia's freight exports, acting as the country's unshakable economic spine. But its true vindication came in 1941. When Germany invaded, this exact railway moved vital, battle-hardened divisions from Siberia straight to the west, arriving just in the nick of time to save Moscow and turn the entire tide of World War II.
9,000 kilometers of steel, one empire's refusal to bow to the earth.